السجن كيف تدير أسئلة أظن أن عمليا بداية
The scientific debate on harm reduction is over. We know that harm reduction works. But practicing harm reduction is still an issue in many parts of the world. This conference made an important step to mobilizing action for change. One of the highlights of this conference is the Beirut Declaration on HIV and Injecting Drug Use, a global call for action. The declaration calls for recognition that universal access for people using drugs is far away for millions. The declaration also called for renewed action for universal access to comprehensive prevention, treatment and care, and a call for action to remove legal and policy barriers and reorient punitive drug policies. The Beirut Declaration got an editorial in this week's Lancet. That's an enormous achievement. In the editorial of the Lancet, I would like to come with one quote. It is whole immoral that people get infected with HIV or die when evidence-based interventions exist to prevent these outcomes. A declaration like this, launched at a conference, it's already signed by over 100 organizations. I think that's new harm reduction. An editorial in the Lancet, that's new harm reduction. Advocating harm reduction, mainstreaming harm reduction. That's the new generation of harm reduction.
I try to never ever forget why I became an activist, and it was always about working for the rights of the more marginalized people, and this is really what we've been doing here this week. And yesterday one of the guys said, oh, it's been so nice with all the sex worker stuff, and actually I don't think it's about being nice. I'm sort of done with being nice. I think having a lot of sex worker on the agenda for the harm reduction movement is about taking responsibility.
As you may know, Pakistan is an Islamic republic, where decision makers and religious leaders would like to hold on to the notion that no one engages in any kind of sexual activity ever. It's ludicrous, I know. We wouldn't have a population 180 million people strong if we were a nation of asexual beings. Parliamentarians, how do you speak to parliamentarians? How do you present information to them? Sending a flyer in the mail or a report in the mail or a link to a website isn't going to catch their attention. Parliamentarians on a daily basis are bombarded with hundreds of emails, and you have to make your issue stand out. The way to make it stand out is first to stop using so many acronyms. I'm a doctor, and I quickly figured out what an MSM or FSW or MSW was. But I'm pretty sure that 99% of my colleagues who are not doctors or active in the HIV and AIDS field would not know what this material was if you gave it to them.
Coming from Scotland, Edinburgh, and I would like to ask Tam Miller on stage.
I'd like to thank the Irkut family, because that's what we are like. We are like a family. We bicker and argue with each other on the list. But if any outsider attacks us or attacks drug users from any part of the world, we unite and challenge. I've never been awarded anything in my life. 20 odd years ago, in the mid-80s, I was awarded the Scottish Amateur Football Player of the Year award. But if you let me finish, it was taken off me because I gave a positive heroin sample. And then I said to them, heroin doesn't enhance my performance, but they still took it off me. So I hope you don't take the Travis and Carol Jenkins if I give a negative sample today. Thank you. Shukran.
The media coverage, as people may be aware, has been extremely extensive and has helped to highlight the important role that film can play as a tool of harm reduction. So, This year we had over 80 films, 35 of them were shown, but there can only be one winner, and with the support of MTV Beirut, I would like to announce that I'm Dangerous in Love by Michelle Negroponte is the winner.
It's chaos. It involves crime, it involves elements of death, you know, physical danger. I fucking love it. And I will continue, so it's this element of chaos that's always been in my life. Things are going good, I want to mix it up. Got the sacrament in my pocket, and I'm glad to see you. Got the sacrament in my pocket, and the weekend right here. His skin's blue-black, and his tongue's beet red. He says, these ain't visions, these is my friends.
I'm here picking up this year's Film Festival Award on Dimitri Mabenga-Marganis and Michelle Negroponte, because Mabenga was prevented from being with us by the short-sighted and oppressive actions of the US Drug Enforcement Agency, who seized Dimitri's passport after he was arrested while running a healing ceremony to support people who detoxing using iboga. Some time ago, Mabenga had a vision of the three teacher plants, iboga, ayahuasca and peyote, walking hand in hand together. As such, Dimitri felt it was appropriate for a student of the Latin American traditions of ayahuasca and peyote to stand in for him on this prestigious occasion. These traditions date back to the prehistory, with learning being held and passed on from generation to generation. A chain of learning and tradition that is so often fractured by prohibition with other illicit drugs.
All of you spoke out loudly and clearly this week with three common messages. Harm reduction works, harm reduction saves lives, and that the human rights violations committed in the name of drug control or the control of sex work must end, along with the criminalization frameworks that drive these abuses. But breaking out of silence is not enough, because the counterpoint to silence equals death is that action equals life. And action is so clearly needed at this point in our history. On Sunday, we launched our first ever conference declaration, calling upon the international community to act to address injecting-driven HIV. And I encourage all of you to sign on to this declaration in the days and weeks ahead as we move towards the UN high-level meeting on HIV in June, because the issues it addresses are so critical. As you all know, less than 10% of people who inject drugs around the world have any access to HIV prevention services of any kind. Last year, our organization produced a report which estimated that only about 3 cents per injector per day were being spent on HIV-related harm reduction in low and middle-income countries. We all have a responsibility to help close this gap.
And this year, there was a few issues, shall we say, in the region that could potentially have caused some problems for people actually coming to the conference. But in the midst of all of that seismic political change in the region, and all the reasons why people shouldn't come here, it's very, very encouraging that over 800 harm reductionists just say, we don't care. We're going, we're going to do it, and you have. There's been a lot of irresponsible and sensational reporting of what has gone on in Beirut, in Lebanon, over the years. This is not Beirut of 20 years ago. This is a different, very different city. And I hope that they may take a message from this conference here, that Beirut is safe, it's vibrant, it's friendly, it's open-minded, and most definitely open for business. Safe journey, and let's see you all next year in Adelaide.